Hey YouTube! It's been a couple of weeks. Today I want to talk about the post-grad identity crisis. I know, don't worry. I know it's getting hot in here. Don't worry, just cool your temperature a little bit. Breathe in, breathe out. I wanted to share my specific post-grad identity crisis. I haven't actually mapped out anything specific to say. I just wanted to flow from my heart and flow from my experiences. So for some of you who may not know, I have a bachelor's degree and I also went to go and do a master's degree, and I finished my master's in 2022. Now for some context. When I went into my undergrad, I was really just trying to get away from home. I'm the first daughter in a Nigerian family, and so my main priority was I need to leave this house. My age gap between my sisters is really big, so I felt like in some ways I was being brought down to their age and their age level and responsibility and maturity level, while still having a lot of the domestic responsibilities of being an eldest daughter. And it was weighing on me and I did not like it. Keep in mind, I was also 18. So I didn't have a lot of the adult perspective that I do now, but at that time, I just knew I had to leave my house. So I go to university about 4 hours away, and I feel pretty directionless. And I think this is partially because there are certain career paths I was nudged to go on, like medicine or being in law or being in other science-based professions. And I wasn't really a science kid. I was more humanities, I was more artsy, I was more music inclined. This terrified my parents, so as a result, I didn't really know what to do because I couldn't really go into the arts the way I wanted to, but I also knew that I would not survive in the sciences as of that time. Looking back, I do think I could have probably have done a science or two, but my mental state now and my perspective is completely different. And it's the perspective that time affords you, really. So I ended up doing global development studies, or some places call it international development studies, and I ended up minoring in music. I feel like the Western media makes your undergraduate experience, or maybe American media more so, makes the undergrad experience look like this, I don't want to say utopia, but this experience that you'll never have again, and it is so idyllic and you better cherish it for all it was. And sometimes I really was is this how I'm experiencing the time of my life? Is this what the time of my life feels like? It doesn't feel very time of my life-y to me. I had fun, I had friends, but it definitely wasn't this crazy euphoric experience. And I did my degree and I really did love studying it, but I didn't know how to apply it to the practical world. I then went on to go and do a master's in global affairs, and I had the same problem where I had a lot of fun studying things, but practical application was missing. And so I didn't really know how to get into what I wanted to get into, and also what did I want outside of music? That was the question, because although music is the goal for me eventually, I was trying to figure out what do I do in the meantime. So when I graduated from my master's degree, I came back home, which was a whole thing in and of itself because I was downtown Toronto before, living my best life, and then I came back. I came back to my house, which is very much just out in the middle of nowhere, and I just was wondering what do I do with myself? What do I really want to do? I think another thing I wanted to highlight in the past for my degrees is that while I did enjoy the knowledge I got from them, there was this residing unhappiness I had, and that came from the fact that I wasn't really sure if this was my life path, and I felt a little trapped. I felt a little stuck. I felt like I was supposed to do these things because that's what was expected of me. So my parents expected me to do the sciences, and I didn't do the sciences. So the next best thing, I guess, and maybe they would disagree with this, but the next best thing was to achieve a degree in the highest form. So if I'm not going to do the sciences, if I'm not going to be a doctor, if I'm not going to be a lawyer, at least get a master's, at least get a PhD in this. And so what that would do is essentially, in their view, make me more open to better job opportunities within those fields. But I wasn't really feeling a ton of passion for those fields in the same way. Now, this is not to say that I am somebody who doesn't really love what I studied. There's so many aspects I love about it, but the traditional career paths that come from that were not really appealing to me. So I really had to backtrack, and I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I'm not saying this is everybody's post-grad identity crisis story, but I think when you're struggling with trying to figure out what to do next, and then you're also trying to understand your identity. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And then your schedule that you had since you were probably 5 or 6 years old, maybe even 4 years old, is just completely thrown out the window. The predictable school schedule, the predictable, I start school in September, I end in May, or I end in June, and then I have a summer, and then I go back for another school year. I learn a new set of information, and then I have a summer. All the people in my social circle are from school, and we are all going through the same things, and we are all doing the same thing, and we all have a similar goal. That, just toss it. Once you graduate from your degree, just toss that, because you're going to move into a new world where you really have to trust your own life path. You really have to trust what you want to do for yourself, and it can be tough and terrifying. And another thing is, you are responsible for the outcomes of your life. You are responsible for making the best with what you have, and that is something that becomes very apparent to you when you realize that nobody is keeping you in the job that you don't like. If you don't like it, then figure out how to get a new job or quit. Nobody's keeping you in that relationship or in that friendship. You don't have your parents over your head telling you what to do. It's you. And so if you're unhappy with a decision, the focus, the control shifts to you. As a Nigerian child who is the oldest and was often told that I should listen to my parents, obey my parents, submit to my parents, I was used to deferring to them. I was used to them making my decisions for me. And so the biggest post-grad identity shock that I have had personally is having to make these decisions for myself, and also realizing that even if there are people around you influencing you to make a particular decision, you are still the one that makes the decision, and you are also the one that lives with the consequences of that decision. So even though everyone around you might say that there's a certain option or a certain choice that seems great on paper to everybody around you, if you for some reason have some apprehension, you're not feeling it, you have to make the decision yourself. Because what I've realized is when you make a decision that you're not really internally aligned with and external forces have made you to make that decision, what ends up happening a lot of the time is when you are suffering the consequences of misalignment, whether it be frustration or whether it be burnout, or there was an outcome that you knew you wouldn't really enjoy, but you just kind of glossed over it, whatever it may be, those external forces are not there for you in the same way they were when they were influencing you and pressuring you. And life is really complicated, because are the external forces bad? No. They might be friends, well-meaning friends. They might be well-meaning parents, aunts and uncles, mentors. If your intuition is telling you that, hey, this is really bad, this is not a good option for me, just go with it. Go with it and figure things out. And I think that is the part of the post-grad identity struggle that we don't talk about a lot, having to follow your own internal rhythm and not going to anybody else's. And so I think that's really what I want to talk about in the post-grad identity crisis, is that it's a departure from the structure that you have experienced years prior. You might have become an adult 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, but if you were still in the post-secondary schooling system, whether it be college or university or another institution, there was still the schooling structure of, we have school from September to May, September to June, and then we have summer. Everybody I'm with is in my social circle. We are working towards the same goal, to graduate. Afterwards, you scatter into completely different life paths, and you might realize that what you studied is not really what you want, or maybe you knew it all along, but there was nothing you could do about it for various reasons that might not have been up to you. I think we also have to realize that when people enter school, university, typically they're 18 years old. What does an 18-year-old know about life choice, about their life path? When I was 21, or was I 22? I think I had just turned 22. There was one day I was contemplating and I was like, wow, they really just threw me onto a university campus at the age of 18 and said, figure it out. And figure it out I did. But when I look at how naive and young and small I was, it just made me reminisce. It's hard to explain the feeling I had, but it was basically a feeling and realization of I was so young. And so people who are 18 years old choosing a path of study, the person you are when you choose a path of study at 18 is not the person that you are when you finish at 21 or 22 or potentially 20. It is not the same person at all. And we don't really account for that. And so it can lead to a lot of incongruence in identity. There are things you realize along the way that you didn't know about yourself before. And it just takes a lot of soul searching. So one thing I just want to leave everybody with is that it's okay if it takes you a while to figure out what you want and who you are. It is okay. It is normal. And don't force yourself to get to a destination that you're not sure of, because this life is long. Where are you running to? Why are you going so fast? If it's social media that is pressurizing you and telling you that you have to be in a certain place directly or indirectly, switch it off. We didn't have all of this 30 years ago. 30 years ago, people went in their separate paths. Of course, there was social pressure, but there wasn't an influence on Instagram telling you about how successful they are at 20 years old, and all the trips they get to go on, and all the money they spend that is probably your monthly salary that they spend on one trip. That's okay. It's okay to switch off social media if that's what you need. And if you are a Christian, I encourage you to get in the secret place. What is the secret place? That's the secret place with God. That's the place where it's just you and God. So there's corporate gatherings and there's the secret place. Corporate gatherings in Christianity refers to when you go to your church and you fellowship with other people, you talk to other people, you interact with them, you sing songs together, you pray together, you read the Bible together. That's really good. But you also need a time where it's just you and Jesus and you and God. They're the same people, by the way. And in that place, you will learn a lot about yourself and you will learn a lot about your next steps. You need that place where you talk to Jesus and it's just you and him, and you worship through music, you pray and you read your word, and you focus just on him. A lot of people after school are actually thrust into a waiting season and they don't know, and they're busy frantically running around trying to secure the latest job, trying to secure the latest gigs, when they should just be focusing on Jesus. It is a time of rest. It is a time to understand what your next steps are. So that's really what I want to say about a post-grad identity crisis. If you are about to be a graduate or you're a recent graduate, congratulations. That is wonderful. You have just completed something so amazing and you should be proud of your accomplishments. For the road ahead, don't be scared, but just be patient. Just be patient with yourself and be patient with God and trust that his timing is perfect. Don't be frustrated if you feel like you're not getting a certain answer in a certain time. There's a reason to why you're waiting. There are things you are learning while you're waiting.